It's funny. When people talk about the great 3D Mario games, the conversation is almost automatic. Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, Odyssey, they're big revolutions, big leaps, big statements, and then there's Mario 3D World. Kinda just sits there. It's respected, sure, it's liked, but celebrated, revered, talked about as one of the all-time greats, not really. And I think that's because Super Mario 3D World is one of, if not the most misunderstood Mario game ever made. Not because it's flawed and not because it's lesser, but because it came out at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and wearing the wrong name. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of it all, I'd like to explain some things. First of all, I love the sandbox 3D Mario games. 64 and Sunshine, they're not that good, well, in my opinion. I still like them, they're fun, I 100%ed them, but Galaxy and upwards is where I really fell in love with it. But 3D World is different, and to explain why I love this game so much, it's one of my favourite video games ever, period. So why? Well, my first exposure to the game was on the 3DS. Back in 2013, when I was a mere 8 years old, we took a road trip to Sydney, and me and my brother were able to connect our 3DSs to the internet for the first time. While we downloaded as many demos as humanly possible, we watched game trailers that would pop up on the eShop. I remember watching the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon trailer for the 30th time, when I saw the 10 New Things About 3D World trailer. I watched that trailer in pure awe. I had to get a Wii U. However, my parents had just bought us 3DSs, so we had to wait a while. When I turned 10 in 2015 and got my first iPad, I binged We Like to Play's 3D World series over a few weekends. I was only allowed to use electronics on Friday through to Sunday because I was so young. Having to wait those 5 school days to continue the Let's Play was grueling. And while it took a couple years of constant begging to get a Wii U, when we finally got it in Christmas 2015, me and my brother were hooked. We were in pure love with this game. So you can imagine my surprise when I went online a few years later and saw the massive amount of hate this game was getting. People loved the game, sure, but it wasn't the unanimous praise games like Galaxy and Odyssey got. But why, I thought? Well, to understand why, we have to rewind to 2013. The Wii U was struggling badly. Nintendo was in a strange position. The Wii had exploded in popularity, but the Wii U confused consumers, sales were low, and the system lacked momentum. Fans were anxious. They didn't want refinement, they wanted a sort of redemption. They wanted the next Mario Galaxy, the next sweeping, ambitious statement that would prove Nintendo still had that magic spark. Instead, what we got was Super Mario 3D World. Bright, compact, multiplayer focused, and structured much more like a 2D Mario game. Many people looked at it and thought, oh, so it's 3D Land again. And that was the problem. 3D World wasn't trying to be Galaxy 3. It wasn't trying to be Odyssey before, well, Odyssey existed. It wasn't trying to reinvent Mario. It was refining something very specific. But in 2013, refinement didn't feel exciting. It felt safe, it felt small, cautious, at a time when fans wanted bold. Because of that context, 3D World was judged not for what it was, but for what it wasn't. Something you should never do when looking at games. Some people still describe 3D World as an awkward in-between game. Not fully open like Odyssey, but not fully linear like classic 2D Mario. Just sitting somewhere in the middle. But that interpretation misses the point. 3D World is not a compromise, it's a deliberate fusion. It takes the tight obstacle course precision of 2D Mario and translates it into fully 3D spaces without losing clarity, pacing, or any of the design discipline. Every level is compact, focused, and purpose-built. There's no wasted space and no aimless wandering. Every jump matters. Every platform is intentional. Every enemy placement is thoughtfully considered. It's level design at its most distilled, and achieving that kind of focused precision in 3 dimensions is incredibly difficult. The game's linear structure is not a limitation, it's a strength. Creatively, I feel the game is far more adventurous than critics often acknowledge. One of the strangest claims about 3D World is that it's safe or uncreative, which feels almost absurd when you look at what it actually does. This is the game where you can duplicate yourself with the double cherry, which started as a mistake, by the way. You can become a cat, you sprint across transparent platforms under time pressure, and you ride a weird Yoshi Loch Ness monster through a giant neon carnival in space. That's not even mentioning the stages as Captain Toad, character who cannot even jump and who appeared in the previous 3D Mario game, and now he's been given his own style of gameplay, which even spawned its own spin-off game. The sheer density of ideas per minute is remarkable. Instead of building massive sandbox playgrounds, 3D World introduces a bold concept, explores it thoroughly with a tightly designed level, and then moves on before it becomes stale. This approach reflects creative confidence and restraint. Now, this does get a little different in the special worlds where they remix levels, but that's the thing, doing it once or twice is really not that bad. In some ways, the game is more inventive on a moment-to-moment basis than some of the larger Mario titles, precisely because it refuses to overstay its welcome. Now, I can't talk about this game without talking about its visuals. Visually, Super Mario 3D World is also deeply underrated. At the time of release, some dismissed it as looking like New Super Mario Bros. In 3D. Too familiar, too simple. But a closer look reveals a carefully crafted aesthetic. The lighting is warm and theatrical, giving each level the feeling of a staged performance. The colours are rich and vibrant without becoming too overwhelming. The environmental objects, such as clear pipes, rounded hills, and blocky platforms, create a cohesive, toy-like diorama effect. The game isn't striving for realism here. It embraces stylization and clarity, presenting a polished, intentionally artificial world that feels charming and cohesive. On the Switch especially, the crisp resolution, smooth performance, and expressive animations highlight just how visually refined the game truly is. It may not be flashy or dramatic, but it's constantly and deliberately beautiful. The soundtrack too deserves far more recognition than it receives. Now, it is one of the more revered parts of this game, but I'd still like to call attention to it anyway. Rather than a grand sweeping orchestral soundtrack like Galaxy, 3D World leans into jazzy, upbeat, playful instrumentation. Brass sections bounce energetically and many tracks evoke the feeling of a whimsical city performance at night. Some of these themes remind me of like a New York marching band, like the kind I see on TV. Now, I'm not really American, so I don't know if that's what comes to mind or if it's accurate for many people, but it's sort of what I thought of for a little bit. Even the quieter pieces carry a smooth, stylish tone. The music enforces the sense that a game is the performance, and a playful spectacle unfolding on a grand stage. It doesn't aim for the cosmic sci-fi style of Galaxy, but instead establishes its own identity through charm. Style is, after all, an achievement in and of itself. Now, let's go back to the things I said before. This game is multiplayer focused. Multiplayer is another aspect that is often overlooked or underestimated. 3D World was built around cooperative chaos with a structured 3D framework, a design challenge that most platformers struggle to manage. The game solves this by keeping levels compact and camera angles controlled, ensuring the multiplayer remains energetic without becoming unmanageable. The competitive co-op dynamic, like players accidentally sabotaging each other or racing to the top of the flagpole, creates a unique tension and humour. I 100%ed the game with my friends, the co-op comrades, over on my gaming channel, and that is still one of my most treasured gaming memories. I still remember us desperately trying to collect the most stuff. The chaos is not a flaw, it's part of the game's identity. It's a party platformer built on precision design, a rare and carefully balanced combination, and nothing shows this more than the crown. At the end of every level, a crown is awarded to the person who scored the most points. Points in Mario games have never really meant much, but here it leads into a fantastic concept. Constantly trying to earn the crown, then stopping your friends from stealing it in the next level is such a fun time. I'm very confused why it didn't come back for Mario Bros. Wonder. That's not all though. Beneath its bright colours and approachable exterior, Mario 3D World also hides one of the most demanding post-games in Mario history. Champions Road is an intense test of skill, requiring near-perfect execution and deep mastery of the mechanics. I still have bad memories of getting onto the thank you section out of clear pipes and running out of time and having to do the whole thing again. I genuinely almost cried. For a game sometimes labelled as a casual or easy, this brutal post-game content reveals surprising depth. That's usually what happens with Nintendo games. They want to at least get everyone to the credits and then ramp up the difficulty afterwards. It welcomes newcomers with accessibility and warmth, then quietly challenges the experienced players to prove their mastery. That layered design speaks to a thoughtful and nuanced approach. But let's go back to the title. I claimed this game was misunderstood, and that's what I'm here to tell you. Perhaps the biggest misunderstanding of all is the expectation that 3D World should have been something bigger. But bigger is not always better. It's focused, efficient, bursting with ideas, and polished to a remarkable degree. It never sought to redefine Mario in the way Galaxy or Odyssey did. Instead, it aimed for a perfect and specific style of 3D platforming, blending structure and creativity into a tightly curated experience. When the game was re-released on the Nintendo Switch, free from the Wii U's troubled reputation and the pressure of saving a struggled console, many players re-evaluated it more positively. Without those expectations weighing it down, it could finally be appreciated on its own merits, and that's what people discovered in a game that has always been excellent. The issue was never the game itself, it was the timing. Super Mario 3D World is misunderstood because it's subtle. It does not shout revolution, it refines instead of reinvents, it prioritizes structure over freedom. Yet refinement can be just as impressive as reinvention. Far from being a lesser Mario entry, 3D World stands as one of the tightest, most creative and consistently designed platformers Nintendo has ever produced. It simply had the misfortune of arriving at a moment when players were looking for something else. Sometimes a game is misunderstood not because it failed, but because audience were not ready to see what it truly was. And there's nothing I can do about that. The future of 3D Mario seems almost certain. With Mario Odyssey's massive sales success of 30 million copies sold, I don't think we'll be getting a 3D World sequel anytime soon. But I will always hope. Hope for a sequel that expands on the stuff I love about 3D World, and gets more people to see what this platformer-style 3D Mario can truly be. A fantastic time capable of standing toe-to-toe with the sandbox Marios of the no doubt future. But what is it that you think about Super Mario 3D World? Is it one of your favourites? Is it still just pretty good to you? Did the Switch version change your mind? Or are you someone who's always quietly loved it while everyone was chasing Galaxy and Odyssey? And hey, if you enjoyed this kind of deep dive into a Nintendo game that maybe doesn't get the appreciation it deserves, let me know. There are plenty of other titles like this that are just waiting to be re-examined. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.